Interesting thing about shaving is something I learned is tapering that mustache. So you can see just a little line across. You can use clippers to do this. You can use a razor. It's a little harder to use like a disposable razor to shave down the mustache. But if you know what you're doing and you practice, it does come out decent. I used a razor on this, so this is a little, I think I need to touch that up right there. But yeah, you want to typically keep some skin in between. It keeps it kind of tapered in. It's a nice look. Bearded, I mean, in the military, you can't do it. They make you shave. And the only way to do bearded anything is to go SF or, to go Navy SEAL training. There's no other way to, unless you're in like a special mission or something like that. I want to say wartime, actually. No. I don't even know, honestly. It makes me wonder now that I'm saying it. Do you have to shave when you're deployed to Afghanistan? Because I don't even know if you do or not. I think that's an easy answered question. I'm going to Google it while I'm online. Google, 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 Google. All right, so what's the question again? Do war vets shave every day in combat? Okay, so unless field operations or war operations, soldiers do have to shave at the first chance that the situation permits. So yeah, it's kind of weird. And what you can imagine, if you're special missions or whatever, you got to fit in with everyday life. You would have to fit in with people that would want to think that you're going to do your daily runs as if you live there or whatever. So it's a different dynamic. Whereas like if you're in a unit, you're going to be in a convoy and there's going to be a lot of people with you, arguably like, let's say like a company's worth at least, or maybe a little less depending. But yeah, I don't know very much about operations in the field. I did all training operations. Never had the luxury of serving in any emergency capacity until I was actually an inmate, which is interesting. That's the most fascinating part about my story, I think, is that when I was able to somebody sat me down, right? They told me, don't move. You can do this or you can do that. And one was firefighting, putting your life in danger. It's not that scary, but it is scary, and it does mess up your lungs. It's a hard job. It's a very hard job. And I'm not going to ignore the fact that there's hardship in it. Like the people who volunteer, even the crew bosses who run inmate crews, that's a hell of a position, hell of a lot of power you get, and you're dealing with a bunch of knuckleheads, to be honest. So in order to rein that in and get them to be productive, it's a very impressive skill and probably underpaid, I would imagine. Most good jobs are. Most important jobs are. And I think maybe Washington could adopt that firefighting dynamic. I'm not really sure, though, because the fires up here aren't too bad, but firefighting teams with inmates worked really great in Nevada, and they did a whole bunch in California. I'm so thankful that I got to do that type of work, because without doing that type of work, I still wouldn't feel like I deserve to live. When you participate in petty theft, there's nothing quite as shameful as far as judgment, from the average bear, so to speak. So people love to judge, especially petty car thieves. I never stole a car in my life, but I was always the guy who was like, there's probably some change in the cupboard there. I need a beer. I'm coming down off of drugs, and that was a very short duration of my life, but a duration of my life nonetheless. So, being sat down and being put through, not hell, but corrective action. And then even going through the even going through that class I did in the restitution center, it was just like AA, except for, it was more introspective. And I wish I remember the name of that teacher at the institute in Nevada, because he definitely played a role in my success and in my ultimate, overcoming of addiction in general. Is somebody who dedicates their time to people that are lost and are already, sat down, already in this system where if they mess up, they're going to prison, they're going to big boy prison, And people who are able to do that, stretch their ego, or not ego, stretch their, I guess, it would be more like dimming your ego, not letting your ego shine too much, and then and this guy actually was the only inmate to ever work for the Nevada legal Department of Corrections. He's the first inmate to ever work for the Department of Corrections in Nevada. That's huge. Not only can the guy relate to the inmates, but he can tell them his story, his journey through sobriety. I remember in that exact class, they had warned us about an app called Stash. And this was, I want to say, 8 years ago. So if it was about 8 years ago and I had started investing in a stash, by now I'd have a pretty penny on my hands. I'd have some profit. So it's not that, I wouldn't say that the systems we have set up in the judicial system and the imprisonment system are altogether, to the wayside. But I would definitely say that there's aspects of imprisonment, especially when you get to medium security, especially when you get to maximum security, where it's inevitable. Like, corruption's going to be there, racism's going to be there, death is going to be there. This is sort of the reason why prison is so mythological. It's like almost myth-based. Like, I remember when I was first going to prison, the police were trying to calm me down about it. I'm thinking, this is it. This is where it goes down. And you get there, and then you kind of sink in, and you're like, oh, okay. So it's not scary. It's just, it can be scary. It can be life-threatening. It is weird. And there is medium security and maximum security have potential for corruption. But for example, my caseworker, when I had went to NNCC, my caseworker was talking about, what was he talking about? He's talking about how he was getting paid from the military for his injury, and then also getting paid, at the NNCC place for his job. And he was bragging about it and telling me to, go ahead and do that if I had any injuries. Well, it's not that he did anything wrong. He's just bragging about his income, but he was telling me to jump on the bandwagon a little bit. And to me, that seemed a little weird, because it's not like I told him I had anything, too crazy happen to me. It wasn't that bad in prison. And there's people you stay away from. There's people who through the grapevine, through the systems. That's where the segregation does come in handy. And if that's kind of the argument, I think, for the guards, is that if everybody was together and then nobody was racist, then it'd be everybody against them. And I don't really think it works like that. I think that maybe racism is something that we can work on eliminating separate from that entirely. The guards are safe. The inmates are going to stay there. They're not going anywhere. There's a very rare occurrence that an inmate will try to escape prison. They know they're going to get shot as soon as they jump over the fence. And let alone, just going to chow. You can't run. If you run to chow, everybody get on the ground, You can't run. So I think racism, in a lot of ways, it just, in prison, it eliminates the inmate's ability to navigate and solve problems in an easier fashion. You know, I get that shot callers are good peace ambassadors, I guess, but not always, you know, and time and time again, I've seen stuff break out where it's not really that cool, you know? People getting stabbed for nothing over dumb jokes and words, really. And this is minimum security experiences, and so you can imagine, you know, go Max. The thing is Max, they're sitting in a cell all day, so the only person they can hurt is really their roommate, or somebody on the way to a transport time. So like the amount of coordination needed to do anything crazy, you'd have to be well connected, and you'd have to be using brass slips in a way that just would be out of the ordinary. It'd be a connection that, you know, it's not the greatest connection. The brass slip thing, it does open up, and let me tell you, I've seen people with connections in prison. I've seen people with that, and it's not the best thing, you know. It's not the best thing to have somebody who can reach out and make shit happen on the outside to where someone's not concerned about doing more time on the inside will stab someone or pay someone off to get stabbed or whatever. And it always has to do with race. It always has to do with, you know, oh, well, he's black and I'm Mexican or whatever, you know. It's all different. It depends on whatever yard it is, and that's another thing. Politics in prison is notoriously transformative. It transforms based on state, based on city, based on race, based on violence, based on drug use. All of this stuff comes into play when you're talking about corruption in prisons and racism in prisons. And you know, last thing I want to do is condemn inmates to where they have nothing, because I know how it feels. But I don't like the idea that MS-13 or something can kill some innocent guy, you know, because I'm reminded of that stupid trial with the dentist where he hired a hitman, obviously, and he's trying to back out of the idea, but it just reminds me of that because it seems to me that prisons are just always so content with the way things are, and changing things is always such a headache for prisons. You know, maybe someday I'll get a job at a prison, because honestly, life's starting to feel like a prison anyways to me, you know. We just got to do our time on this earth, and we got to hope for the best, and, you know, don't expect heroes to save you. It's just, I mean, look to your family, look to the people that love you. Those are the ones that are gonna come out for you and support you, and always use your voice. I know I rant a lot. I just I don't want my voice not to be heard, and I'm kind of sick of not being heard, you know. Anyways.